All right, it's 8:30. Let's get started. Good morning, everybody. Public comments, limit to 2 minutes. And I know we probably have several, so if anybody's got public comments about anything on the agenda, now's the time. So please state your name.
Well, my name is Kate Horn. I'm the clerk of Pleasant Plains. And I have some printout here for everybody to take a look at. Regarding 110th Street, running east of Pleasant Plains. And I also brought my minutes for the town council, from the town council meeting, that where we had the understanding it was a B, not an A, but then we heard it was an A, had been changed. And so we was wondering how it was changed without us knowing it, being that 1/4 of a mile of it is city limits of Pleasant Plain. And all of us, all of my council agreed that they wanted to leave it as a B. I could have brought a resolution if that would have helped. I could get one. But the town would like it to be left just like it is. A mud road with the county maintaining it like it always has been, and no changes.
Okay. Thank you for your comment. Any other ones? Any comments back here? Anybody in the room? Anybody online have a public comment? All righty. There's no more public comments. We will move on. Acknowledge minutes. And this is from March 25th.
Yeah, so moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Hold on a second. And then we've got one from March 26th. Like when we do. Oh, this was a public hearing. I'll make a motion. We approve the minutes from the 26th.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right. And 27th, department head meeting. First time we've had official minutes from that. Thank you. Motion to accept those.
So moved.
And I'll second it since I wasn't able to attend. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay. Even County Engineer, welcome back.
Good morning, Supervisor. Happy April Fool's Day. So for those of you who still have them on, today's the day to take your studded snow tires off.
Okay.
First Monday of the month, so we had our safety meeting this morning, reviewed work zone safety. Just basically did a video with some general guidelines on being safe out in traffic. Then we had a discussion about some of the various safety topics and things to help that crews had for ideas on making it safer out there. One of the things that came up was portable rumble strips. We talked about it in the past, and then it kind of died from lack of interest. But this year, the guys decided that maybe they were interested in it because they had last summer a number of close calls where people were looking at their phones instead of the road and had not noticed that they were coming up to a flagger and kind of blew through the work zone. So we hoped that the portable rumble strips might be something to at least get their attention.
Do you have some of those on hand or do you need
We
to order?
don't. We're going to resurrect the price that we got last year and check with the different suppliers that are out there, and then also visit with some of the contractors who use them to find out which ones they've tried and which ones they like best. So we'll we'll keep you posted on that. I don't remember what the price range is on there. So we'll see where they fit in.
There might be some safety grants out there,
Yeah.
but you need them, you need to get
The
them.
thing is, safety grants, you have to apply
Yeah.
for them in August, and then you can't spend the money till the next July.
We need them sooner than
Yeah.
later.
And we do have the portable traffic signals coming.
Oh, good.
Well, we have been told we have a grant for portable traffic signals. They notified us in January. They have yet to give us a formal letter of award. Although I emailed them last week, and yes, they are working on those letters. They're just running behind, but we are still supposedly in the lineup for that.
Okay.
And those will actually be a second set that we will have 2 sets to be shared between 4 counties. So it'll be us, Keokuk, Washington, and Henry that will be sharing those 4 sets, but we'll have possession of them. And we had to get the other counties on board to get the grant, and
Sure.
we'll work out how we need them between
Okay.
those. Things are a little wet to be doing much out in the roads, but it's a pretty good day for getting some grading done and working some rock in. So we'll work on that, and as weather allows it, we'll get back into finishing up on Palm and replacing pipe and doing all the other stuff we do. And that's really all I got. Oh, and next week I will have my DOT budget and 5-year program for you guys to approve.
Mhm.
Because those have to be turned into the DOT by the 15th. I'll try and get those emailed to you later this week so you guys can review them before Monday's meeting. So if you have any questions, you can get them composed and we can discuss it next week. But I wanted to give you a heads up on those coming.
Okay. All right, couple questions. I know I got an email on, I'm guessing you two did too, about dust control, somebody requesting that up on you, because there's so much traffic. Did you get that email also?
I've been in discussions with them for quite a bit. They've been doing or paying for the dust control like every other resident in the county does. Their issue is they want to add a strawberry patch, and the dust is supposedly bad for strawberries.
What's the traffic count like on that road?
80 vehicles a day. It's not a high traffic count, but it gets
Truck
some.
traffic.
Yeah. And I don't know if that'll increase or not with the road construction. I can't imagine it's going to affect it much. But I guess I told them we don't dust control for other businesses. So if they wanted to, see if the supervisors would approve that use, that was their call, but they could certainly do that. Or, like years ago, the county split the cost of dust control up at Middle Coops.
Hmm.
And we haven't had to redo that road yet, but we're getting close to the time where that's going to need another application. And, there's nothing in the county ordinance that addresses that. What splitting costs. We have 2080s with like City of Pleasant Plain for if we're going to do chip seal through their town on any of their area service routes that are on our agreement, that we split the cost with them, but we don't have anything formal with any private parties.
Typically, it's kind of a can of worms if we start doing
Yeah.
this, but I'd like to
Years
make
ago,
odds.
of course, I assume you're referencing the seal coat up on 100.
On 55th, yeah.
We also partnered with Hartley Condon down
Mhm.
on the
That's been a
hills.
long time ago.
Yeah, and I'm not aware that we've done it since I've been gone and came back.
We've done it.
Those specifically were seal coats. I think the way I mean, there was a partnership there to be sure, and at the time that we did Harvey's, the figure was 25,000. So we split that. I don't remember what it was for Jack, maybe I don't remember. But that was the agreement that we had there. But given our, um, trying to keep things, what's the word I'm looking for? Financially, within, perspective. And again, like Dwayne said, if we start that, then everybody and their brother and their sister, and we would be, I think, obligated to meet the same requests. So all we'd be getting done is dust proofing or whatever. So, now I suppose, I don't know, Dwayne, I'll throw this back at you. If they come and said, hey, we'll pay for the whole thing. Yeah, which I have no idea, what that costs, but I just, we've got some road projects that need to be done that we're pushing further and further out because of costs. I don't think this makes much sense to me.
And the issue with chip seal is before you apply the chip seal, you have to make sure you have a solid base under it. Otherwise, you just wasted your money. So 146th and Brookville Road had both had substantial rock placed on those previous year prior to putting the chip seals on. Just going in and applying it to a road that hasn't had the base improved isn't a good practice, but
Yeah, and that Brookville years ago had been seal coated or chip sealed.
Yeah.
And it did increase the traffic, substantially heavier equipment traffic because it was a shorter route and because it was quote paved.
What about up on, with the 78th detour? Always seeing more traffic up in
not
that way.
Not yet that I've heard of. I think most of the traffic increase would have been last year on 110, as people used that as a workaround. But now they've got it closed from Brighton to the west to the park entrance, so there's not a convenient loop around through Jefferson County to get around that. You have to go, to stay on pavement, you have to come clear down to Salina Road and run around to Germanville Road and come in the south side of Bright, which is how I come to work now. It's a nice road. It's a nice drive. Just got to watch for the deer. But it's not a shortcut compared to running through the DOT's loop for most of the traveling public.
Comments?
No.
Okay. Alrighty, anything else for Dwayne? All right, discuss 110th Street east of Pleasant Plain Road. Do you have anything on that?
Yeah. I come to see if we could come to a decision on that. They're calling me about the dirt. They're ready to start dumping dirt if we can come to an agreement. Last I spoke with Dwayne, we're not gonna take any ground from any side, any farmer, no crop ground's gonna be taken on that road. We're just trying to come to an agreement if they can start dumping dirt and bring the road up to appropriate height.
Well, this is on our agenda as discussed today, so it's not like a discuss and consider.
You have a public hearing set on it next week, I believe. Is that correct?
I would have to
On
look
the
to be
8th, I think.
sure.
There is one on the
Right,
8th.
though.
Which would be next week.
So,
That's what the minutes said last time.
And we've got
That's
from
how
the
I
public
read the
comments,
minutes.
Yeah.
what Pleasant
Didn't
Plain,
used to, but I am.
do you want to see that?
so I guess the question then that I have is, with the dirt that they would be bringing in from wherever, you can build the road up to what you need.
Actually, the road's not too far off to for what we need if we're just going to improve the existing road top. We need to do a little ditch grading, clean it out and touch up the drainage to make sure the water flows as it's supposed to.
They did move the flags in to 45 feet south of the telephone poles are on the south side of the road. They moved them, the line of stakes there, and then 45 feet to the north, and that's exactly where the road was.
And that's the edge of right of way. That's not the edge of where the road's going to be. No, so that'd be the backup ditch.
Yeah, that's where it looks like it needs to be.
So if, I'm just gonna put it in layman's terms. So the road as is currently constituted as far as its width stays the same, and we just put rock on it. I mean, you'll have to, what do you do? You put a crown on it.
We'll have to give it basically the road section of the county road for the 22 feet.
So if we go ahead and rock that road, but don't change the dimensions, I mean, it may be, foot here or there or whatever to get, but don't change the dimensions. And the only thing we're really doing is just adding rock to it. And then, of course, the county would continue to maintain it. And I'm asking the city of Pleasant Plain, and they probably would have to go back in front of your council. And asking Dean, would that work for everybody? In other words, it would accomplish, we wouldn't be taking any property, well, I shouldn't say it that way. We wouldn't be taking any ground that's currently being planted or whatever. Yes, sir.
So I went out and measured roads around. The road in front of his shop is 22 feet wide, like the gravel part.
Right.
In previous discussions, he said something about it being 30-some feet wide, which is what spruce, the main gravel between Brighton and Salina, it's 31, 32 foot wide. So that's like a main gravel.
So I
So
always used to think, and Dwayne, correct me if I'm wrong, but as a general rule, our road tops are 22 feet wide.
The paved roads are 22 feet. The gravels we try to keep between 27 and 30.
Okay.
That basically gives you enough room. So if you have a large agricultural implement, some of those larger combines and tractors take up 15, 16 feet of road. If you only got 22 feet, that makes it awful tight.
yeah, but that road doesn't get too much traffic normally.
Okay, I'm gonna just read what Kay gave us from the council. The city council of Pleasant Plain wishes to return the status of the section of 110th Street east of Highway W21 Pleasant Plain Road to a Class B road as it was before August 2023. Physical description of 110th east of Pleasant Plain to a Class B to begin approximately 320 feet east of Highway 21 and finishing approximately half a mile to City Lagoon Driveway. Western border of Class B road, 55 feet from the center of driveway to the lagoon to the west, where previous level B road signs is still in place. Pleasant Plain city limits are to the center of Redwood Avenue. The city wishes that the road portion of 110th Street described above be no more than 45 feet wide ditch to ditch north of the power poles on the south side of the road as it is on the paved portion west of W21 through Pleasant Plain. Widening the right of way through the city of Pleasant Plain to be 66 feet is impractical. The homes and lots in the city laid out in the 1800s didn't account for larger road right of ways in use today. So that's from the Pleasant Plain City Council.
Dwayne, how much is the rock going to cost?
I don't have a firm number off the top of my head. I think I told you $10,000 last
Still
time we
make
talked.
$10,000.
Yeah, and I was wrong on that. I reran the numbers. It's about $25,000.
That's a number I heard from another, a county worker in a different county too.
I don't personally know how we can consider this.
What I'm wondering is, okay, you make it that, whatever it is, 21 inches or whatever, 21 feet, I guess, not inches, been a little one. But, how, if I'm going down that gravel road with my car and he's coming with his, what do you call it?
Oh, boy.
Low boy, whatever, on this wide thing, where am I supposed to go? I'm not gonna be able to get around him.
Well, there was lots of truck traffic last Friday, the hauling dirt to his
Big.
way.
Yeah,
What?
big.
There was lots of truck traffic hauling dirt last Friday, and the semis were able to meet on the dirt road, and it's 22 feet wide.
Okay, okay.
And
Yeah,
they could pass.
They would get
Okay.
choked up in front of my mom's house because it's a city street.
Yeah, your oversized loads, as we've talked about just a couple minutes ago, anything over 12 feet, which is considered a oversized vehicle, is going to be a tight fit. You know, it's not, but with the traffic that I would anticipate, you know, you're gonna have harvest where you guys are gonna have heavier, wider vehicles on there. And I'm guessing occasionally you'll have an oversized load, but more than a couple of days, a couple per day would be a rarity, I'm guessing.
I'm guessing those vehicles already use that road unless it's wet.
Yeah,
Because, I mean,
So-
that's
Yeah.
what farmers do.
and
They
it's
take the
passable. I would
shortest
say the
route.
dirt road's
A lot of
probably
people
passable
use-
85% of the time.
Okay, Susie, you had something to say?
I think that's a lot of money on a year when we're having trouble with budgets. It is a lot of money.
When they went all these years, they wouldn't change it for the school district. Why would they change it for one individual?
That's right.
Okay, so again, this is a discussion and it's good
Yeah.
discussion,
And
so,
the $25,000 is out of their budget, not the county's. The way the ordinance reads is the developer or the landowner who requests it pays for the rock. The county pays for placing the material and getting the road bed ready. Some of that we do as maintenance anyway, keeping the road in shape, but that's only a couple times a year, so it's not that big an expense. But I met with Billy about that again last week to ask him, you know, just go out and take a second look at it and see what you think it's going to take. And he didn't feel that it was too far off if all we're going to do is rock it and make it passable.
so I've got a question for procedure, Chauncey. So the city council of Pleasant Plain goes, Senate gave us, this is what they decided. And it's their right of way until the middle of Redwood. So according to our 28E, we need to follow what they want, don't we?
So they have
I'm just
authority,
asking, yeah,
they have authority.
right,
It's their district essentially to Redwood.
Mhm.
right.
It's a county road after that.
Well, it's part of the 2080 agreement,
Right.
so the center 22 feet is the county's to maintain.
Okay.
Yeah,
But it's
I don't know how improvements are neglected or just plain not anticipated in the 2080 agreement.
I just want to know procedurally and legally, I mean, we can't overwrite the city of Pleasant Plain. I mean, this is what they, it's like if,
You know, Dee, they do have a complaint as well, I feel, because they weren't even notified that we did it the first time from B to A. So, you
well,
know,
it would have been on our agendas.
But who
how many people
reads
read
that?
that?
No,
Yeah,
I know.
it's-
I
But
think the
that
major
wasn't-
problem was with the increased right of way. That is what our major problem was. So as far as we're concerned, 45, as long as you stay in that 45 feet, I don't really care too much. I mean, I'd rather have it not gravelled, you know, but, you know, I'm tired of coming here too. You know,
Understand.
but
Well, procedurally, we have a public hearing on this next week, right? So that's the
That I
time.
did read, yes.
So that's the time. I mean, this is a great discussion, okay? It seems like every time we discuss this, there's new information, but that'll be the time to really
But here's,
us to
I
listen.
don't disagree with you, and I know that we can't officially make a decision, but so we kick this down the road to the 8th and a week from today. What I would like to know, and I guess the public can inform us on the 8th, but, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Chauncey, but the city has to go back and amend their decision if we're gonna put rock on it, even if we leave the width of the road as it is now. Leave the right of ways the way they are currently, and we just put a layer of rock, or how many layers, but whatever. We just rock that road. And I heard you say that you didn't particularly care, you wouldn't.
I don't have any say though. I'm not the city
Right,
Pleasant
but
Plains.
Right, it's up to
would you
the
care if the road was rocked?
It's never been rocked since I've been there 50 years, and they don't need it now. That's the way I look at it. You're saving tax dollars for the people.
Okay. So where I'm coming from simply is that the city has to take action to undo what they did. And I don't mean that to sound the way that
No.
sounded, but,
No, I know.
it's
It's not mine, it's the
right.
town council vote.
But the council made a decision.
Yes.
And so it's our responsibility
Am I
to,
not wrong?
No, you're not wrong on that. Question is, I mean, does the county want to fight with the city of Pleasant Plain about this?
No, I don't want to fight with anybody
No.
about it. I was just hoping that, there might be an amiable solution that would benefit, all parties if we left things as they were dimensionally speaking. Then it wouldn't interfere with the work that you all have already done. But it puts rock on the road that helps him. But again, the city council's required to change
right?
well, not required, but I mean, for us to be able to move forward, you'd have to change. The council would have to revisit the issue.
So if,
You can read.
Well, I see no-
Now, why can't they go out the other direction if you ain't changing the road? What's the object of changing that side of the road? I mean,
Go to
why
Spruce
gravel
is what he's
this
asking.
way when you can go out the other side that's already gravel?
right,
Go to
Yeah.
Spruce and turn.
Well, we're
Down
all the way
north
to
or south.
Jefferson Road.
The road needs to be rocked. The efficiencies and inefficiencies of leaving it a dirt road are just ridiculous.
It's in
If you're
there.
gonna,
Are we?
let me finish, please. If you're gonna run a business, you cannot be taking the long way around to go everywhere. You have to do the most efficient thing. We don't want to pay for the rock on that gravel road. But the ordinance says, and my grandfather did it, Frank Drish did it when we went from, up to his house, he paid for the rock back in the 30s. So it's a standard process and procedure. And as far as saving tax dollars, how can you save tax dollars if we're gonna pay for the rock?
Because years down the road, you're gonna be applying rock, and we're short of rock every place where it is right now. We're short of rock. We ain't got enough rock in none of the roads.
okay.
Hello.
All
But we
right,
need,
so,
we need the access for efficiencies of running a business
Okay.
and from marketability. Your parents fought that for years
Well, I know they never changed it for the school district. Why would they change it for one individual?
because your parents never offered to pay for the rock out to the road.
okay,
Okay.
okay, we're gonna wrap this up.
That's the
Oh, what
ordinance.
they made Wade to drive in a bus to pay for
All right.
rock.
We appreciate you all being here, and just procedurally, the ball is in City of Pleasant Plains court right now. What, in the,
I will go ahead and call another meeting and we'll bring it up.
if they're okay with it being rocked,
Yeah.
and the same width, is that correct?
Mhm.
Make sure we're all on the same page here.
22 feet wide.
Like
Right.
you Ron,
And we have a public hearing next week,
next.
so.
So I will call a meeting this week.
And again, if you don't want to attend in person, you're welcome to Zoom on, and the link's on our agenda, which is on our website. One more quick comment, then we're going to wrap this up.
At present, the county is responsible for the grading of the dirt road.
Mm-hmm.
The dirt road is now low enough, now it's had enough erosion over the years that it is actually puddling water on. The opportunity to get the dirt on the road from Highway 78 with the cost of grading the road is all you have to do is run a road grader on it and bringing this profile up. So it's in preparation for rock or an enhanced dirt road that it is right now is still an asset and an opportunity
Okay,
for
well,
everybody.
we'll let our engineer research that.
Yeah, something was 78, they hauled it down.
Yeah, they have been. Yeah, we We met with them last year. Larry was filling in his property and they need a place to get rid of material. So they would be more than happy to bring that. And anything we don't need on 110, we've got a couple other roads at the north part of the county that also need additional. So it's a great opportunity to get something that normally we wouldn't have access to. You know, free dirt's a good thing, no matter where you are.
How many dirt roads do we have in this county?
You've got about 100 miles of them, give or take.
Right. All right.
So.
Yeah.
If I heard you right, the city council, you want,
Yeah, I'll call a meeting this week and we'll go back over it.
because there's really no point not having a public hearing.
If we don't have a solid recommendation.
Right.
Right.
Right?
Okay, will we be invited?
Yeah, it'll be an open meeting.
All you gotta do is get on, tell her to get on the agenda.
Okay.
Okay,
That's
thanks.
the way because we had a closed meeting to discuss it after both of the gentlemen came and talked. We had a closed meeting. But this time we can have an open one.
All right. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for your interest and information. Okay, we're gonna move on. Consider refund warrant. This is to follow up on last week. We just needed it on paper apparently, so Shannon put this here. This was approved last week and Shannon procedurally, we just need to,
Yeah, you approved the abatement of the taxes. I didn't realize that they had already paid their tax bill,
Okay.
so we have to refund it. So that has to be approved by the board as well.
so you need a motion for a refund warrant in the amount of $1,816.
Yep.
I'll make that motion.
A second.
Do we have any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Or C's? All right. Brian, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. For March, we did 134 calls. Total for the year is 855. Currently in the account is $18,803.42. On March 25th, Mark transferred $78,525.52. $113,225 has been collected. In waiting that we have coming so far is $590,886.
So is that actual revenue or is that billed revenue?
That's actual revenue.
And that's on your dashboard?
Yes, billed revenue is 888,000. But what's actually being collected is going to be 590,000.
Is that going to be collected before the end of the fiscal year?
Oh, yes.
How are we doing on cutting overtime?
Pretty good. I got two medics that are out with medical issues, so we're going to be filling in for them. They should be back in a couple of weeks. They're PRN medics, not full-time. I spoke with Kevin. Our new ambulance will be ready on Thursday this week.
Then, in that regard, real quickly, Dee, did you get an email from
Not ambulance related.
Kevin?
Mhm.
Okay. I've forwarded to here, but anyway, he sent the invoice. Or the invoice is attached. I haven't looked at it, but, told him to send it to Claire. But anyway, I forwarded it to myself, so I'll get it to you or whatever. So, did you talk to him about you bringing it back?
No, we didn't talk about that initially. He was in the middle of something. He had sent me some pictures.
You may not have time to go over there if you're going to be on the truck.
Thursday, Judy could be on the truck for me, my place, on
So how are you gonna get up there though? You're
Well,
going to pick something up. Is
right.
somebody driving you?
Yeah, if somebody would drive me, I get from my next door neighbors or somebody if we need to. So,
I don't know, how important is that? Because I'm struggling with, yes, I think you need to drive it, but is there a warranty period on it?
Oh, well, how do I say this? It would be Ford Motor Company, or it's a brand new truck. But the suspension underneath would be warranted by, I'm not sure who builds those suspensions, but it's not part of the truck manufacturer warranty because it's an upgraded suspension or a suspension designed for this purpose. I have no idea.
I guess what's the difference if Brian drives it back or drives it around here for a while?
I don't have an answer for that. I just know that he mentioned it.
it's just make sure all the bells and whistles work. I can drive it here as well too. So, I guess it's up to you.
Given you.
Whatever is the cheapest way to go.
Well, I guess the question is, I'll put it this way here. You guys think I'm out in left field, that's okay. I honestly, the more I thought about it, I would rather they come
All right.
and bring the rig. And then you can drive the rig or somebody can drive the rig around and out on the highways while they're here.
Yes.
And then if there's any hiccups or anything along those lines, as opposed to, and just because they send an invoice, don't misunderstand how this sounds either. But I think that there's a window of opportunity there that we'll probably have it in use for at least 30 days before we actually.
Right. I agree.
Yeah,
Okay, so that's my thought. So,
yeah, it just seems like as much as we want you to watch staffing and, have my mileage over there, that's an expense we don't have to do. And it
Right.
seems like unless something jumps out at you on the trip back, you're gonna get the same issues back
Right.
here when it's under the real use.
Yeah. So I can drive it around here. That's,
Right.
and he can ride with you, I suppose, whatever too.
Oh, absolutely.
Plus, I think it'd be nice if you could look or something.
Yeah, well, no, I agree with you there. So that's my
Right.
thought process.
And 52 is going in the Festlers for brakes on Tuesday.
Again,
Yes.
Was it just the oil pan?
That was the oil pan last week. It's going in for brakes this week. And part of this brakes were part of CARE's responsibility to keep that up. The brakes weren't taken care of properly, so.
How long have you had that? Since October?
Yes, and we've had no issues with the brakes
Okay,
until recently.
but it's CARE's fault.
I'm not placing blame. I'm just saying that they had it under as part of their package to keep that.
right, better, long enough. Okay.
That's the 2016.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, anything else for Brian? All right.
And I'm asking this, but it would seem to me that well, we can discuss it later. I just don't know what are we thinking in terms of rotation? I mean,
Well, the new trucks are gonna be our primary, and since it's gas, it's gonna be the primary with them. 51 will be our transport truck.
and then 52 would kind of be our backup.
That's correct. So this is the oldest of the three.
So when will we be returning Libertyville's vehicle?
Probably later on this week, as soon as we get our ambulance out.
Did you contact Joe Vance about that garage door?
Yeah, the deductible is 750. The cost of the garage door was 1,100
And
total. So
are there any other incidents like that that need to be checked in?
no, there's no incidents. And he said it's best just to pay it outright than make a claim is what he made.
Okay,
Say it again.
he told me it was better just to pay it outright than make a claim and have the insurance go up.
Right.
So, because of support
But we
costs.
we want you to have
1,100.
that conversation, anything like that with them,
Correct.
and let us know too.
Sure will.
All right, anything else for Brian? All right, we're gonna move on. Emily is sick today, so that won't be happening today. And so William Doherty, welcome. I met Will at ISAC and he works for Mid-American, and so he's gonna educate us. And I asked him to educate us about wind and solar, and I don't know how we can hook this up.
Do you want me to sit over there? I only ask because my
Sure.
computer has a terrible battery life on it. And I'll probably need to keep it plugged in.
So while Will's setting up, we'll have a commercial here for Prevent Child Abuse Awareness Month.
Yeah, you showed it to me before.
So Tammy Pounds is how I could tell.
Yeah.
I thought you'd have had yours on today.
They didn't give me one.
He's not on that committee anymore.
Oh, that's right.
If somebody really cared
No.
about my health and safety, she would have taken.
I would have
Yeah,
gotten him
one or
one.
two.
That's my fault.
I haven't.
You know, we
heard-
didn't have a lot of notice on it. You know how that
Yeah,
goes.
yeah.
If you want to send that to me, I can,
I did just email it to all of you.
okay. Boy, if you can figure out how to hook that up, go for it, but we don't know, and
Options.
okay, I haven't gotten it yet.
Next screen share. Zoom. Let me try the Zoom meeting quick. I might be able to share it on there.
Oh, good, you understand. Our engineer's here, so we're gonna want to talk about road damage for sure.
It's usually a hot button item.
Yes.
You ever thought about buying a line energy out there?
The problem is with the IUV, you have to do a territory swap.
Oh.
Space for a second.
Oh,
But you know,
Unless you are straight up buying them out, in which case it has to be approved by regulators. That have to happen. I think no matter what, it has to be approved by the
but you know,
regulators.
the other thing that people forget about is that the law says you can't have a monopoly. But clearly, the utility companies have monopoly.
We are extremely regulated monopolies. Yes. Because it came out, nobody really wanted to have 8 different sets of power lines running through their cities.
Right.
All right, see. Join online here and see if I can share through there.
Wow. You'll have to show us how to do this.
If I'm successful, I will. If not, I'll be moot.
That's what I like about LP. Not only can I see what I'm using, I can use whatever company I want to use.
This meeting is being recorded.
Turn that off. Anytime. Let's see if I can.
Oh, you need to change screen share.
No, let's go back. Okay, just check. Unless I would need to. Not so sure I'm gonna be able to. Should open quick screen share. Not so sure I'm gonna be able to figure this out.
All right.
I apologize.
We're impressed you got that far.
All right, well, you can, you want me to just run it off my laptop then?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I haven't gotten it at the email yet on my,
Oh, let's go. Let me make sure I'm connected real quick. I believe I am. Might take a little bit to come through. Apologize, I'm going off my cell phone for
right?
internet access. Did say it's sent. All right, I'll stop messing with that. Do you want me to just kind of swivel it so you can all see it right now? Or just kind of talk through it a little
Actually,
bit?
yeah, I've got a swivel
Oh, perfect.
for Zoom room days.
Apologize that anybody that's online won't be able to see it right now, but like I said, I emailed it to you. You can feel.
Actually, you can probably just leave it there, kind of.
Yeah, perfect. If anybody has questions throughout this, feel free to chime in. Okay, so just real quick, I would just kind of start with, who Mid-American Energy is, who I am. So Mid-American Energy, we are the largest utility in the state of Iowa. We are headquartered out of Des Moines, which is where I work. I work in the Urbandale office. We have about 3,400 employees in the state of Iowa, and we service about 1.6 million electric and gas customers combined. So I'm Will Doherty. I work in our project development department, which basically just oversees the development or acquisition of new generation assets, mainly wind and solar. We do dabble a little bit in some thermal assets as well. But the lion's share of everything I do is kind of in the renewables realm. So hopefully I can shed a little bit of light on that for you all today. So electric generation. So I talking with Dee, she kind of wanted me to start broad, kind of on like general national trends, why renewable projects have been cropping up and continue to crop up throughout the state of Iowa, throughout the country as a whole. And then I'm going to kind of narrow it down from a nationwide view to kind of a regional view, to kind of a state view, and just kind of talk about, how Mid-American sees it, some of the driving forces behind it. Then I'm going to kind of wrap it all up at the end with some information specific to, renewable facilities, the taxation of them, considerations you all should have when you do go to make a county ordinance that regulates wind or solar, and then we can kind of have a discussion after that. So general trends from the electric industry. So 24 states in the US plus the District of Columbia all have adopted specific greenhouse gas reduction targets, and more than 4,000 companies across the United States and globally have representing over a third of the global economy have also adopted similar greenhouse gas emission targets too. And so what does that mean? Why am I bringing that up? What that means is that it's either policy or industry driven from our customers or from legislators across the country, that there's a desire to begin to transition off of, and you'll hear, the electric transition. That's a term that's used quite a bit. Some folks use it when they're talking about, electrification of vehicles. Some people talk about it when they're talking about, thermal assets and transitioning toward more renewable assets for the bulk of the energy production. But no matter which way you slice and dice it, it's a a metric and a target that a lot of companies have interest in, and a lot of legislators and state governments and even the federal government have interest in as well. And so that's driving in a large part utilities and independent power producers investments into renewables as we kind of go into the future. And I'll kind of touch on it in a little bit, but Mid-American has a policy. We have a program in place, excuse me, not a policy, we have a program in place called the Green Advantage Program. And what that is several years ago, we certified through the IUB basically how much renewable energy on an annual basis we serve our customers with. Obviously, that's not, you can't really load follow with that. It's not minute by minute, but it's basically just saying, here in 2023, we generated X for renewable energy out of all of our assets. Our customers use Y, and it's what percentage of that customer usage is renewables that gets accredited through the IUB. And that's something that's a value-added program for us because we see that a lot of the customers are starting to demand those sustainability initiatives. A lot of our kind of larger industrial customers, manufacturing customers as well. And so what that Green Advantage program does is allows us to retire the RECs, the renewable energy credits, on behalf of our customers. There's no buy-in that's required for it. You don't have to subscribe to anything. It's just simply by being a utility customer from Mid-American Energy, you get to claim those renewable energy credits, which in turn is a much easier, streamlined process for our customers to achieve their sustainability goals. So just to kind of give you a general outline there of like why folks are transitioning more toward renewables. Some of it's policy, some of it is customer preference in your energy service, and then also personal goals as well.
So we have an electric line in the county that's also going to be upgraded,
We're gonna get to that.
and that's part of this overall.
Yeah, so that's another thing we're gonna get to here in a little bit. I'm glad you asked that. Another driving factor behind it too. So this is a study from Lazard. Lazard is kind of like an industry standard that's referenced a lot. They do a levelized cost of energy every single year for all different fuel types, all the way from nuclear to coal to natural gas to wind and solar, geothermal as well. And so what they do is they kind of break down a levelized cost of each one of those assets. And they even do a subsidized versus an unsubsidized comparison, because obviously it wouldn't be fair if you just use a subsidized one, considering that coal and natural gas aren't as heavily subsidized as wind and solar are today. But looking at the general trends, though, kind of as you move along this graph, it starts all the way back in 2009. The reason why it starts in 2009 is because that's when the original round of production tax credits were really implemented. At the federal level, it's when you saw a pretty high investment in renewables. And so you can see here, this top one on the left side of the screen, this is solar. In 2009, it was one of the highest levelized costs of energy on a per megawatt basis. Going down the line, you can also see that wind was the fourth highest as well back in 2009 as well, onshore wind, not offshore. But as you kind of go down the graph here, it kind of tells two stories. So first of all, when the federal government's going to subsidize something, it's going to drive investment, it's going to drive competition as well, and that's going to drive down cost. And so as you go along the x-axis, you can see now that as you get kind of over here toward the end, the levelized cost of energy for solar has decreased about 83% since 2009. Levelized cost of wind onshore has decreased 63% in that same time period. So it's continually, and this is another driver behind why the investment for renewables in the country is kind of proliferating so much, is because it is consistently across the board the lowest levelized cost of energy out of any resource out there.
What happens if these tax credits for the companies go away?
Yeah, that's something we get asked a lot on. So it's something that everybody's policy is going to be a little bit different then. As Mid-American's policy, we have basically the obligation to serve our customers with sustainable energy, affordable energy, that's the big one, affordable energy, and reliable energy. So that's why, and I'll get to it here in a little bit, we have a current fuel mix right now that utilizes a lot of thermal assets, which are kind of utilized in a more dispatchable manner now as opposed to base load, which they historically have ran on. But so if the tax credits went away, basically these projects would be looked at in much more closely, I guess I'll say. Right now, it makes a ton of economic sense for our customers, because that's who we're investing on behalf of, is our customers, our ratepayers, to try to keep their costs low at the end of the day, to try and be competitive and have that affordability. If the tax credits went away, we'd obviously have to do a economic analysis on it and see if it still makes sense. I will say though, back in 2021, the production tax credits, the original round of them, phased out. And it wasn't until 2022 when the Inflation Reduction Act was passed. At that time, we had just submitted our wind prime project, which is 2 gigawatts of wind, 2,000 megawatts of wind energy, and 50 megawatts of solar energy approximately. And we are still going to progress forward with that. So we still saw a benefit from it, albeit not as good without the production tax credits. But that's largely because the levelized cost of energy is fairly low. The sustainability goals that we have as a company and that our customers kind of expect as well. Yes, we wouldn't be making as much money, but it'd still be cost competitive to do those assets. And so kind of, in order to narrow it down a little bit, I kind of explain like what an independent system operator is. So the independent system operators across the country are basically just the transmission operators. So we operate in the MISO territory, the Mid-Continent Independent System Operator. It's kind of this band of blue through the center of the country right there. There's markets also for, you know, the New York ISO, the California ISO, ERCOT, which is basically Texas. There's PJM, which is kind of like Ohio, Pennsylvania, East Coast. And then there's even like the New England one, which is basically everything from New York up to Maine. So the reason why these ISOs are in place is to maintain a competitive market. Obviously, since utility companies and transmission companies own those physical assets, in order to maintain a fair and free market, independent system operators get to do that. They don't have any stake in it. They're completely agnostic to who's producing power, who owns what lines, and they get to dictate, you know, how that power flow comes on and off. They can call on you as a power generator if, you know, a coal plant trips offline or a natural gas plant trips offline and you have, you know, some sort of accredited capacity on the system. They can call on you at a moment's notice to basically get that online to stabilize the grid. And so they play an important role in the transmission system as a whole. But across the country, there's been a huge backlog of new projects that are connecting into these ISOs. There's a process basically that you go through when you are trying to install a new generating plant. But it doesn't matter what kind, but there's basically have to submit a queue position for the load, the size of it. You also have to include in there, you know, what type of fuel it is, because that's going to, you know, go into the calculations to dictate what times of year that resource is really available.
So what point in the process is that done? So for example, the project that's going through our county, have they done that, or is that process?
I don't know. And so let me.
And I know this isn't your process, your
Correct, yeah.
project, and that's why we want you here, because he's basically independent of our project.
Yeah, so let me I'll explain that question. Let me kind of get into the process a little bit, because the way that you submit these queue positions changed this year.
Okay.
And that's largely in response to this FERC filing, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, that was passed back in 2023. So basically, since there was such a large backlog of these projects, it's basically jamming up the system. They go through this study process determining, you know, how many projects are in a queue. The transmission system can only hold so much. And so as a proposed new generation source and the owner of it, the independent system operators basically do a study and they say, okay, these parts of the transmission system are going to fail, whether it's switches at substations or the conductor's not large enough, doesn't matter. They will allocate you as the generator who's going to interconnect into the system, basically a dollar amount to upgrade those certain facilities. This is an iterative process, so you go through 3 rounds of it. People, you know, drop out depending on a variety of reasons. If they can't progress the project, if the bill is too high to make those system improvements. There's a whole variety of reasons, but basically you get it narrowed down through this whole process. Historically, that's taken a year and a half, a year, somewhere in there. But recently, I mean, for the most recent cycle, 2020, took about 3.5 years to 4 years, just because of the sheer volume of these projects and the uncertainty with these projects as well at the local levels, the state levels from policy matters, and also the financial aspect too, when you have all these projects that are jumping into a queue and then jumping out based on financials. And so it's become very rigorous and burdensome. And so what the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission did last year was they issued a new rule for ISOs in the US, saying that you have to reform your procedures and agreements that electric transmission providers use to integrate new generating facilities into the existing transmission system. So you need to rethink this. You need to either set priorities with projects that are further along, have more policy certainty, doesn't matter, but basically you as the ISOs need to come up with some sort of framework that's going to make this process more streamlined, because it's becoming a problem. And so transmission providers basically had until Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, to come up with those new systems. And so MISO has, PJM has, and so to answer your question, those rules have changed slightly.
We do have a hard meeting at 10, so.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Sorry, I tend to kind of babble and go into too many details, but.
Because we want to definitely get to the local level.
Okay, yes.
This is helpful for
Okay,
us.
and so to answer your question, I don't know if they have interconnected. There's new rules in place to new requirements that you have to be met, from a land control perspective. You have to have a substation site picked out as well. I would be surprised if they did, but I'm not saying that it's impossible, basically, because last year there was no queue position because they're going through this reform. And so right here, I just want to kind of showcase the generation mix. That's kind of, the result of what I've been talking about right now. And so we are in the west region of MISO, but also kind of showing the discrepancies between the central, east, south, and the east ITC region. So you can see a lot of the other regions have very high solar allotment. It's in the yellow there. Whereas the west region has a fairly high green, which is, green allotment, which is wind. In the west region. And we'll get into that here a little bit, but you can see that, for things such as natural gas, it's making up a fraction of the total queue positions, and there is no coal in here either. It's just kind of showing that it's becoming more difficult to, permit facilities that are higher emitting facilities, I'll say, such as coal. Natural gas still has a very good business case for it, but the lion's share for sure is wind and solar in storage of one form or another, mostly battery storage. And this is just kind of a futures report of MISO, basically just kind of indicating 3 future scenarios, the less aggressive going up to the most aggressive scenarios. Going back to 2005, there's a 65% allotment in MISO's generation capacity that was coal energy. Today, that sits at about 30%, so it's almost halved since about 2005. And then the futures report, which goes into the long-range transmission project, that was one of the reports that was produced for the board of directors to vote on that, which we'll talk about right after this, projects that by 2042, there'll be anywhere between a 4% coal allotments for MISO's generating capacity down to a 0%. That's largely dependent upon any policy changes in the future, whether that's for emissions or state standards for greenhouse gas emissions, or the EPA comes out with any reformed emissions for, certain thresholds you have to meet, whether, you need to introduce more scrubbers, more investment into those facilities, and whether or not that makes economic sense. And then this is a 2022 board of directors slide just about the energy transition. So it just kind of lays out current trajectory without the Inflation Reduction Act, current trajectory with the Inflation Reduction Act. The general trend is still the same. It's just the expediency, or the acceleration of that trend over time. It basically just indicates we are transitioning that way as a country, as a independent system operator. But the Inflation Reduction Act obviously spurs that along with economic incentives. They project, approximately 135 gigawatts of new solar, 130 gigawatts of new wind capacity by 2035. And they also project that coal is likely to be mostly phased out across MISO by about 2050. And so there's that gap kind of, how do we fill what was traditionally a base load resource with other resources, and how do you kind of manage those intermittencies in generation from solar and from wind. And so this all fed into the MISO Long Range Transmission Project, Tranche 1, which goes through the Fairfield area. I wanted to bring this up since it was relevant to you all. So the goal of this Long Range Transmission Project is to alleviate grid congestion. There is a large...
And that's the electric lines.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And so there's a large, I think it's like a $10 billion investment over a few projects. A few projects being multiple projects within a single one. But anyways, basically it's meant to try to alleviate grid congestion, to try to get, solar resources from the south and from the east over to the west, and wind resources from the west and the north over to the east, to kind of have a more, or I should say a less volatile market, and a more consistent market for customer bases and for utilities alike. And so that will be going through the Jefferson County area. You can kind of see down here, it's the Madison to Ottumwa to Skunk line that will be getting upgraded.
So, to ask you a question, pertinent to local. So let's, hypothetically speaking, because no decision has been made one way or the other here, but hypothetically speaking, if we design our ordinance that makes it impracticable for any wind energy entity to locate turbines here. Okay, so then what happens?
They simply wouldn't be able to, unless they were to come to you with some sort of project and to enter into some sort of agreement or go through some variance process with you, which would be very hard to do. They likely just wouldn't be able to cite a project here. I mean, it's happened throughout the state for sure already to this point.
So that's one of the reasons I was asking the question, because I was listening and you're talking about at some point here by 2050, I think you said we would be relying on coal at about 4%.
Based on the MISO projections, roughly speaking.
So how many wind turbines and solar farms are we talking to be able to accomplish that?
I mean, they talk in metrics of megawatts and gigawatts. What that translates to for turbine models, sizes, and farms, I couldn't exactly tell you, because every wind farm has different models with different generating capacities.
See, here's part of my issue.
Yep.
If you wanted to provide enough electricity to serve the city of Fairfield within its corporate city limits. I mean, I don't know if you're talking strictly wind, okay, renewable energy, whether it's solar or whether it's wind. I can't imagine what you would have to have here to be able to accomplish that.
And so let me just swivel this here right quick. So let me clarify. This is not everybody's position. This is Mid-American's position though. So we're committed to an above all approach. We have right now in the state, I think, 5 coal plants that are still operating. We have several natural gas plants that are operating, peaker plants or combined cycle. We have nuclear plants over in the Quad Cities area. But we're committed to an above all approach because exactly what you're talking about. One of those 3 pillars I was talking about earlier, sustainability, affordability, and reliability.
Right.
That's the reliability portion. You have inherent intermittencies that are built into resources such as wind and solar. A lot of people are talking about, well, why can't we have some sort of battery energy storage system to basically use energy that is curtailed at any given time because it's not needed, and then you utilize it later down the line when it is required. Right now as a company, we don't see a ton of value in that. It's still a fairly high cost of capital to operate those types of facilities, and the reliability of those facilities isn't at a level that is matching our thermal units yet. And so we see value in maintaining our thermal units through, through maintenance, investing in the maintenance facilities of them, additional scrubbers for, any sort of regulations that come down the line. And I know we retrofitted back in like the early 20 teens, 4 of our coal units with new emission control systems on them to keep them operating, because we want those things to operate through the end of their useful life, to give us enough runway to, first of all, let the industry mature so that things like battery storage might be more economically feasible and more practical, but also for new technologies to develop in that time as well. You'll see here in this chart, there's things such as hydrogen energy production. There's new advancements being made in nuclear energy production as well. Those haven't really come to fruition yet, but we're hoping that, with the investments at the federal level, with subsidies that are there, and also with the aggressive drive, I'll say, toward a lower emission energy grid, that those assets would be available sometime in the next decade and a half. So I understand your concern. Having wind wholly as a resource is not what we're proposing. It is a very important part of the overall generation mix, but it's not a silver bullet. Neither is solar, and neither is any of those with battery. At the end of the day, you have to have kind of everything under the sun, because you have to hedge the peaks and valleys. In 2022, there was the union strike for the railroads. Couldn't get coal to a lot of our coal plants at that time. 2021, there's the winter storm Erie, or I can't remember what it was, down in Texas, that froze up a lot of the natural gas supply because the regulators weren't working. Those commodities were more volatile. They went through the roof in prices. And so able to hedge those peaks with other resources is important to us and important to our customers, because it keeps costs low.
So the concern I have, it's kind of like the hand in the glove, and I know, but solar farms in particular, but wind turbines as well. I see that being able to accomplish, and I don't know that anybody really, and I'm not saying they didn't, I just don't know whether anybody sat down and when you had all these conversations, I don't mean you personally.
Sure.
When they set these goals to be X by such and such a date, you have to have landowners on board with that, unless you're going to force it through eminent domain, which that's a can of worms. But the other thing that concerns me is to be able to accomplish this, at least from my limited knowledge, and it's very limited, but to be able to accomplish this, I see taking a lot of land out of production in terms of corn, beans, wheat, the whole 9 yards, because traditionally, especially wind, you want to locate them in a place where wind patterns exist, number one. Solar farms, we just had one go up in Louisa County, which took up about 800 acres. Now, that may not sound like a lot, but when you start taking land out of production, that's land that'll never be put back in production. And while I believe that our farmers and the industry as a whole have made leaps and bounds as far as being able to produce more on an acre of land than they could have 50 years ago, I don't know how much consideration has been given to this part of the country in terms of what is the trade-off? What's the word you guys like to use? The cost benefit analysis. What is the cost? Not necessarily in terms of monetary cost, but what is the cost of taking that land out of production and losing that in terms of trying to meet what I believe is an arbitrary goal, not one that you've set, but when the federal government gets involved in it. So they set this arbitrary goal. I don't know if all of these things have ever been given any consideration.
Sure. I mean, I can't speak to, the feds obviously either. Sorry, excuse me. I will say though, I understand your concern. I mean, it's a concern that we hear a lot, especially on the solar side, is the tendency to sprawl those facilities. There have been a few studies done though, that kind of put that into perspective about land use in the United States and the quantity that solar would take up if it was wholly responsible for electric generation in the United States. That's never going to be the case. But just going to the extremes to kind of put into perspective the amount of land that would be required. In the state of Iowa, it would be about, and I can get the exact number for you, but I think it's 0.4% of the available land area in the state of Iowa would be required to be within solar generation or in order to meet Iowa's energy demand. I think on a US basis, it's a couple percent, generally speaking. So I understand your concern because 800 acres, 1,000 acres sounds like a lot of land, for sure. It does. But it's also important to recognize, I think, these are individual landowners. This is the stance, at least that Mid-American takes. They should have the ability to choose what to
Right.
do with their
I agree with
land
that.
at the end of the day.
So I have a question about the end of the production period of these.
Yes. Yep.
So can you talk through solar, what happens to those panels? What happens to the wind turbine blades?
Mm-hmm.
What happens, because we've all talked to people elsewhere.
Yep.
And we hear stories of like a turbine will fall down and it's up to the farmer to take care of that. Is that old school? Is that current?
So that is, I mean, from my perspective, that's not correct. We have had one turbine that has fallen down. We took care of the entire thing. We paid the landowner for any damages to their property, any crops that were in the field at the time, decompaction from the crane equipment that had to get out there in order to get all these facilities offsite. We are fully responsible for that. And that's something that as supervisors as well should be built into any ordinance that you guys are considering
Right.
through a decommissioning agreement of some sort.
So let's talk about county road damage.
Yeah.
For especially the wind turbines. It seems like it's significant.
It can be. So the way that we usually operate with counties is that we will enter into a road use agreement. Basically, whether it's a new wind project or a repowering project, we will come to the county, and with the permit application, prior to that, we will have worked with the county engineer to go through, what size of loads we're talking about, frequencies, proposed haul routes. County engineer will give his opinion on, which bridges are posted, the amount that you would like to see, water trucks throughout the area to mitigate any dust, the frequency of blading or leveling or re-graveling the roads. Basically, what we do is we work with the county engineer to come to a point where he feels comfortable turning the roads over to the developer or to the company to basically maintain those roads for the entire construction period.
And then after construction period, what happens? Because I know there's a fair amount of maintenance on these turbines.
Yes, so for any oversized loads after that, we would have to get a permit from the county engineer. Every day, F-150s, Silverado 1500s. I mean, that's mostly what our techs drive around in out to sites. If there's any major parts that need to be brought in, new blades potentially, new parts for like the bearings or new generator, or new substation transformer, that would obviously have to be kind of a one-off with the county engineer to discuss, once again, haul routes, size of the load, any special accommodations requirements, anything like that. But commonly with construction, a lot of times we'll put up something like a bond to the county that basically kind of holds our feet to the fire.
So we had a meeting recently and there was a question about bonds. How airtight are they?
Well, basically, the question that boiled down to was that we would build something into our ordinance.
Mhm.
And I'm a firm believer that the people that are currently talking about putting up the wind turbines won't necessarily be the people that own those wind turbines 10 or 15 years down the road.
Sure, yeah.
And the question from the audience was, and I didn't have an answer, was what's their incentive? In other words, so we've got this bond, but there's no particular incentive for somebody to enter into an agreement. We kind of summarily got situation like that in a different industry right now. But of course, we don't know how often do those blades have to be replaced from all of these and so on and so forth. You know, and so we say, okay, when they're decommissioned, maybe we need to build into our ordinance a specific time frame that you all have, I don't mean you, but the company has to have that out of there if it's decommissioned.
Yep.
In other words, we can't wait 4 or 5 years down the road before you come in and
Correct.
do something.
Yep, that's pretty common.
Yeah, and so, you know, that's, I think, you know, is where D is coming from. We can build these things in there. But the truth of the matter is that Mid-American, and I'm not slighting the company, so I'm just using you as an example, or Apex or any of the rest of them, they have infinitely more money and high-powered attorneys that can keep us tied up in court. And it cost us tens of thousands of dollars to try and enforce our ordinance until it becomes, I mean, I don't see where, if I'm them, I don't see where the economic benefit is of going in there and spending that money when I can tie your butt up in court forever. And I'm not convinced that that's not exactly what will happen down the road.
Okay, another question that came up was, what about a lot of the farmers use satellites and GPS
Yeah.
in their equipment?
Yep.
So do the turbines interfere with that? Because
So-
I've heard that sometimes they do.
We've talked with our landowners about this because I heard this a few years back as well. Just kind of through the grapevine from folks that are concerned about it. You know, talking with folks over in Guthrie, Audubon, and Adair County for a project that we repowered up there. The project's been operating for 12 years. They said they haven't seen any problems with it. There's a project in Lundgren that we're getting ready to repower, which is Webster County, Grundy County. It's a common question we ask. We haven't heard anybody come back to us and say, we have not been able to operate our farm equipment.
How tall are those windmills in Adair County? Because I have some friends that have 5 of them.
The ones that we just repowered had a new height of 480 feet.
Yeah,
What
so,
about VHF radio communications? Any impact?
yes.
We take that in consideration in the siting of the facilities originally. Also during repowering as well, just to make sure there's no newly licensed FCC beam paths or radio waves or anything like that. We do basically a 3-dimensional study with all that stuff for EMS, for any beam paths as well. They're licensed in the project area and you have to site around those
Meaning
things.
not putting one like right in front of the transmitter.
Correct. Yeah, you got the elevation, you got the beam path zone, basically where's your turbine at, how big's the rotor sweep, is it's outside that rotor sweep, is it far enough away? We have standards for how far back we like to keep those things. And then repowering, we do the same thing. Even if a project is operating currently, if we're gonna put bigger blades on them, we're gonna go back and reanalyze it just to make sure that we are not intruding on that actual beam path or communication zone.
What if the receiver is on the other side, right? You know, you got a EMS response on the north side of the county and the transmitter's in the middle of the county. Couple of blades in between, is that gonna cause an impact?
Yeah, you should site outside of those. Yes, I mean, that should be taken into consideration when they're siting.
Well, there's no site outside of where somebody.
Was it just broadcast?
Or for like, you know, an emergency responder. They have to go everywhere.
Emergency response.
So are you talking the communication pathways between the transmitter and the receiver? Or are you talking like a broadcast?
No, for a receiver and transmitter.
So that'll just be a 1-line communication, right?
I don't know, pops up in Packwood, transmitters at, on the north side of Fairfield, and there's a tower in between. That could cause an impact.
If you have, I guess,
A mobile receiver, like a police car going to a repeater tower, I think is what he's looking
Yeah.
at.
I'd have to get an answer. I mean, we haven't heard anything. We work with the EMS responders in all of our counties. We haven't heard that before.
You can't site outside of that, there's no siting inside of that.
Right. Sorry, I misunderstood your question originally. I thought you were talking more of like the beam paths that are utilized for communications. I can get you an answer on it, or I can put you in contact with other EMS supervisors throughout the state that we've worked with to see if they've had any issues with it at all. I know one recently that we've worked with is Union County and Adams County. We've also obviously worked a lot with like Adair County and Audubon as well. So Guthrie, I can put you in contact with any of them. I'm not aware of it. Granted, I'm not boots on the ground guy. I'm not a site supervisor, so I'm not aware of any of these types of issues that might crop up and get remediated on a fairly quick basis. But yeah, I'd be more than happy to get you guys more
See,
information.
speaking for me personally, not the other two. That's the concern I have, not specifically just that, but trying to write an ordinance, and we've got great attorneys with Chauncey and with Elizabeth, trying to put something together. But there's so many things that we don't know.
Mhm.
What should we, I mean, we could have an ordinance that's 450 pages and, you know, trying to cover all of the potential hiccups down the road. And then if we have to come back after the fact, can that be made retroactive? You know, or is it just from that point moving forward? I don't know how we cover our bases.
Yeah, and I think that falls largely on, doing a lot of research on the front end. There's 99 counties in Iowa, and whatever is 60 something of them have ordinances. So there's a pretty large body of work out there for, what's worked for folks, what other counties have done across the state of Iowa. Some of them have utilized outside counsel that specialize in renewable development. Some of them have just kind of taken other counties' work and made it their own, small tweaks to it. I know that there's also, policy organizations that advocate for balanced policy at the end of the day, such as, the Center for Infrastructure and Economic Development. They have like a checklist basically that they give to counties that say, here are the things you should consider and that you should discuss when you're going through drafting a county ordinance. They don't explicitly tell you what those regulations should be, just items for consideration as you go through it, both on the wind and solar side. So there are resources out there, but I understand your concern. I mean, if you're trying to regulate to the umpteenth degree every single facet of a project, it's going to become rigorous and virtually impossible to accomplish that. I wouldn't necessarily advocate for that per se. I think that being a utility in the state is a slightly different scenario than what you're kind of talking about right now with outside developers.
Right.
That we have skin in the game at the end of the day. We own and operate these facilities for 34 years. We also have a rate base, and we have customers that we kind of respond to as well. We have that Iowa Utilities Board as well. So there's a lot of different kind of facets for us that kind of keep us in check and balance with these facilities and try to maintain good relationships with the communities that serve them. I understand your concerns. There are things that should be talked about for sure, but I can try to get you information on that specifically, but if you have any other questions like that, that's what we're here for.
Right.
We can talk with our operations team. We can talk with our contractors who specialize in things such as communications, who do a lot of those studies for us to try to get you an answer. That's not a problem at all.
Do you have any questions?
Yeah,
We've got
just
about 3 minutes here.
Before you
Sorry.
get to their next meeting, what type of life cycle timeline do you anticipate that your towers are good for?
Towers are good for 40 years. We have a certified professional engineer who verifies that, whether that's original construction or repowering. Because repowering, you put on usually larger blades on top of it. The loading is a little different. So we'll have contractors go out and do a foundation analysis and geotech analysis to make sure that there's no additional remediation that needs to take place. But the foundations and the towers themselves are designed to be useful for 40 years. The blades are between 20 and 30 years, generally speaking, depending on any abrasion from dust in the air and front lead.
Just general wear and tear.
Correct.
Fatigue. Yeah, my big concern isn't so much when you have to reblade, but when you actually have to redo the towers, because then you're going through not just possible new construction loads, but also demolition loads. And that when you guys are doing your ordinance, I think we need to look at not so much decommissioning as recommissioning, is, just make sure we have a living maintenance cycle when they go to do that, because that's when you're going to have your next really big intensive use on the roads.
Right. And there's some counties throughout the state that have utilized some sort of language that constitutes repowering. I've seen thresholds such as 25% of the total towers within a project, up to 50 or 75% of the total towers in a project. If you're going to go out and replace, and you can define this any way you want, but essentially a substantial amount of components, blades, hubs, nacelle, towers, stuff like that. Once you're over a certain threshold, that constitutes repowering, which basically constitutes coming back to the county to have this discussion, because you're going to have excess loads, you're going to have higher frequencies of that. But anything for a single tower one-off, something gets struck by lightning or a transformer blows or something like that, or we have to go replace blades because the leading edge wear is too bad. That's something that we as a company would like to handle more on just like a one-off scenario with the county because it's only going to be a single instance. But I think exactly what you're talking about is what a lot of counties have discussed is how do we catch those in-betweens of original construction and decommissioning where there might be a substantial amount of work that's being done, but it isn't necessarily, something that within a traditional ordinance would constitute some sort of permit.
Okay, land values, how do the turbines affect the surrounding land values?
So you look at it kind of two ways. There's the land values of the land that the turbine is on itself. From that perspective, land values are typically higher because you have an asset that derives revenue on the land itself, which is usually higher considering that it only takes up half to 3/4 of an acre with the access road and the turbine foundation. It's going to be higher traditionally than any sort of row crop you can produce in that same half acre or 3/4 acre. So that revenue is built into the kind of the investment on the front end.
How about the surrounding places that don't have it?
Correct. And so
We
the
have a
other,
need to wrap
the
up.
flip side of it is the residences.
Yeah.
And so there's been several studies that have been done on this. There's some that say it doesn't affect, there's some that say it does affect negatively. The best example I found so far was one that just came out last year that basically said from the announcement of construction through the construction phase, there's a slight dip in home values across that time frame. I can't remember the exact percentages. I can get you the report though.
Yeah, if you could send that, that'd be
Publicly
great.
available. But then it basically said after, can't remember, it's 2 to 5 years after construction, they saw no discrepancies between adjacent homes and any homes outside the project area. And they attribute that mostly just because it's a part of the landscape at that point in time. People
Right.
aren't moving in there thinking those are no turbines when you can see turbines
Right.
already. We even have a contractor who's a realtor on the side who works in Adair. And he says that he hasn't seen any difference in business. But those have been operating obviously for 15 years. It's been a long time. So
We
I can
need
give
to-
you the report though.
We need to wrap up.
Can I ask one question on behalf of public health?
Yeah.
I'm Chris Estel, I'm the public health administrator, so I'm gonna ask a question about the quality of life and the impacts of those individuals that live around. I've heard a couple comments, like with the light, with the leading light, and then the noise and how that negatively impacts people living in close proximity to.
Sure. So let me start with the light.
Yeah.
So the
Thank
lights,
you.
the lights are, I apologize, I'll make this quick. The
Sorry, I had to ask.
No, that's fine. The lights are mandated by the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration. They mandate the frequency, the intensity of them, and what turbines need to have lights on top of them. That's out of our control. It's a permit we have to get since it's over 200 feet tall to ensure airspace safety. I will say though, and this is in the slideshow that I provided to the county supervisors at the end, supplemental information. We just installed a project in Guthrie County. It's called ADLS, Aircraft Detection Lighting System. And so there's basically a rule that the FAA has where if you can at any point in time prove that airspace is clear for a 3-mile boundary around the project and 1,000 feet above the tallest structure within the project, you can suppress those lights. They don't need to be operating at that point in time. So to accomplish that, we have to have a radar tower within our project. We got this commissioned back in October. And the data we've gotten back so far indicates that there's been a 90 to 95% reduction in the usage of the red FAA lights at the times they would normally be operating. So we understand it's something that people don't like to see. It's not something that's in our control. There's technology now to mitigate that, and we do plan to try to utilize that moving forward. There's also been a lot of counties who have put that in their ordinance. Namely, I think Iowa County has, Pot County just did, and Palo Alto County.
I think that's in the draft.
And then from the sound side of things, what I'll say is, it's.
Hello.
I don't know if I'm necessarily the right person to speak to that. I mean, you can read study after study and try to support those claims or deny those claims. And I personally don't think that's really a valid way to go about it, considering that it is such a subjective matter. If someone's being paid for a turbine on their property, they probably won't care if the turbine is making sound.
Yeah, it's
But if
the
someone's not getting paid for it, they're probably gonna have a different perception of it.
Right.
And so all, studies aside, it's a personal perception, it's a personal opinion. If something's going to annoy you, whether it's a wind turbine or the color of your neighbor's house or a substation, it's gonna annoy you. If you don't care, it's probably not going to annoy you. So the studies say that there is no adverse effect, but I don't think that's necessarily the whole story. Is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Thank you. I just had to ask that question because public.
On that note, we're gonna wrap this up and we thank you, Will.
Yeah, if you want me to, come back, you have the slideshow. If you need me to explain anything in here, because some slides,
As we get
there's,
farther along in the process, but this was just a good opportunity to
Yeah.
get some over education and we'll get this, each of us.
and there is information on tax in here too, as explicitly
Yeah.
asked by Dee, both solar and wind. If you have any questions on that, let me know. Anything else in the slideshow, let me know as well. It's in your guys' hands.
We
I'm
will.
more than happy to help out any way.
I think the major difference is Mid-American, you own your wind turbines.
Correct.
And so when I ask you just real quick while you're closing up shop here, what is the, when Mid-American goes in and says, hey, we're gonna put up some wind turbines here, you go around the property, right?
Mhm.
And you access an agreement, a lease agreement, or whatever, property owners. When does it become not economically feasible to build a wind turbine in terms of, for example, I think the ones we're looking at coming in here are 600 or 650 feet.
Mhm.
So for example, if we place in our ordinance, it says that the distance from a residence must be 3 times the height
Mhm.
of the wind turbine. So in your case, it would be about 1,350 feet if you're 450 feet tall, right?
Mhm.
Somebody else, if they're 650 feet tall, now we're talking that we're gonna be over 2,000. When does it cease to be economically feasible to put in a turbine based on distances from residences?
It's a really hard really hard question to answer.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of constraints you have to look at. You have to look at topography, you have to look at participation, you have to look at spacing. It's something that's really taken on a project by project basis. If you have a county ordinance that stipulates 3 times the distance setback, but you're in a fairly densely populated rural portion of the county, it probably won't play as well. But if there's fairly low population density in the rural areas, it might not. It might be more justifiable. You might be able to site turbines in the area. It's really a difficult question to answer because there are so many facets that go into it for siting these wind turbines. And also at the end of the day, like you said, it's participation, it's voluntary.
Right.
You can't, at the end of the day, if you don't come to an agreement with someone across the street, you can't put a turbine there and you have to set back from their property, whatever you guys dictate as well. So it's really difficult to answer at what threshold that feasibility doesn't make sense.
Well, I'm on the page that I think we need to establish an X times Y.
Right.
Okay, rather than a specific number of, say, 1,200 feet. Because if they're going to continue to get taller,
Yes.
not only do your fall zones have to be accounted for as well. So whatever we end up doing, I'm a proponent of X times height.
We advocate for the greater of language. So the greater of 1,500 feet or 3 times the turbine height. Anything over a 500-foot tall turbine then would have a further setback of 1,500 feet
Okay.
for that exact reason.
Very good. Thank you.
Yes, thank you all.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Will. Thank
If you need me to
for
come
coming.
back in the future, let me know.
We will. All right,
I apologize.
Denise,
Sorry
thank
for
you.
taking up the time.
Oh, she was okay. I looked at her
Yeah.
and asked her.
We usually listen to drainage, so this was just exchange.
You didn't know you'd get to learn about
I didn't
wind
know that, so I
energy.
appreciate it.
Welcome.
Do you want me to stay? If there's any questions after it all, or I can
Mhm.
stay. Doesn't matter to me.
So she's
I'm at your disposal.
Thanks.
You okay for today?
Yeah, I'm okay.
All right.
All right, so that works.
That's his cup, but.
As we get farther in the process, we'll probably have some questions.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you all.
Yeah, we're just gonna put your name on everything, send your phone number so that
My phone number's already out there for now.
Okay,
That's crazy. Yeah, when I talked to him initially, he said we had a 4-hour meeting the night before in another county.
Oh,
Yeah, that was Adams County. Once again, we're not developing a project down there, but we actually do have wind turbines in the county, so just trying to answer questions.
Thanks, well.
Yes, everybody take care. Good day.
careful. Yep.
Good morning.
Morning.
Do you guys need a break or? Bathroom break or anything?
You want a quick break? 5 minutes?
We take it, but I'm-
I have time if you need to take a quick break, whatever.
No, I need
Okay.
to drink, so I, what's that?
Yeah,
All right.
All right.
so I hear you took on a new county,
Oh, yeah, which one?
Lee County.
Yes, we're still working through a couple of minor things, but yes, I put Lee County, people come on. Sacs County also joined.
Ah.
And I believe Crawford County is also coming on. 7-1. And then I have a quote in Union County's hands that's competitive, but that's a brokered group, so I don't know where they're at in that entirely to know the certainty of them coming in, and then probably about 3 cities I'm working with as well. So we should have another good growth year. So in fact, on page 2, you'll see that we're up to 47 groups in IGHCP. And our membership is now over 11,000 members. So we've had great growth. One of the things for you guys that's so important relative to growing IGHCP is, when Wellmark goes to cut off our claims to calculate your renewal for each July, they cut those claims off in October. So once we hit the end of October, they have all of the premium and all the claims that they're going to need to evaluate our next year's renewal. Well, if we bring groups on in July, we collect premium from them, July, August, September, October, right? So we have 4 months of their premium. But the way health insurance works, the large claims, they don't get into the system
Right.
because it takes a while to get through the hospital systems, then to get to Wellmark and so we have about 2.5 months of claims, but 4 months of premium. So that really offsets our loss ratio to our benefit, to your benefit. So growing IGHCP is important. It's important we grow with the right people. So we do still decline to quote. We have counties that have tried to come in just as early as this year that we have said no to because their claims are just too high. If we take on claims that we know have big risks going forward, they're not ones that are one and done, right? They're big claims, ongoing claims. It's in your best interest that we don't bring them in because that's going to impact your renewal, right? On page 3 is Jefferson County. You guys had a great year. Great year relative to your Wellmark claims. So from January through December, the 2023 calendar year, you had 80 people covered under the plan. That's 80 employees. When you add their dependents and spouses, you had 145 average members for the 2023 calendar year. The premium that you paid Wellmark is just over $1 million. And the claims that Wellmark paid, this doesn't include your partial self-funding. So the claims that Wellmark paid was $549,000 to create a 52% loss ratio. You guys had one of the best years of all the IGHCP groups this year in 2023. So great claims year. Your partial self-fund is also performing very well. So far this is through all of the reporting in this packet is for the renewal. So it's all through December. But Darcy has your claims reporting up through March. You should have just gotten March, I think. Or no, you should have just gotten February. Okay. So through December though, you gave us $89,994. That's the amount of money you gave us to pay your claims, to pay your partial self-funded claims. The actual claims incurred was $53,000 for an over of $36,607. So you guys are running quite well from a partial self-fund exposure as well. So this is just 6 months. So if you figure if we annualize that out, you'd be right around $100,000, $106,000 Last year, you spent 94,000. The year prior to that, 146, 180. So you can see that your partial self-funded claims are trending in the right direction. So all good news there as well. On page 5 are your high cost claimants. So these are people covered under your plan that have had a diagnosis where the amount of dollars paid for that single diagnosis has been $10,000 or greater. To help you better understand this report, if you go 4 columns in where it says REL in that blue banner, REL is short for relationship. So let's look at your first claimant. You can see that the relationship is an S. S means spouse. Okay, so that's a spouse of an employee of Jefferson County. And E is indicative of an employee of Jefferson County. You currently don't have any dependents on this report, but if it was a child, there would be a D in that column. From there, you can see the age band of the employee or the spouse in this example, followed by the claims paid. And then we separate those claims paid. So for an $80,529 claim, $70,773 was paid under health and almost $10,000 under pharmacy. And then you can see the diagnosis following. You do have just under halfway down the page, you'll see you do have one claimant that has been canceled. That simply means they are no longer covered under the plan, and that risk has been removed from your rate calculations. Next is your disbursements report, receipts and disbursements report. This is a snapshot of the annual activity of your consolidated bill. Your consolidated bill is created by EBS and sent to the auditor's department on a monthly basis. So the top section of this report are the items that we billed you for. And the receipts for those items. So by line item, you can see what you paid EBS. And then the bottom section under disbursements is how EBS dispersed those funds. At the very bottom of that report, you'll find your account balances. So if you look at the third account balance down, Jefferson County Insurance account balance, that's your partial self-fund reserve. So that's the money that we pull from to pay your partial self-funded claims. So again, everything looks great. You guys' plan is running quite well. On page 7, you'll find the medical benefit overview. So these are the 3 benefit options that your employees currently select from, ranging primarily by deductible and out-of-pocket maximum. Prescription drug card and copays are the same. We do have a couple of changes as we approach your July 1 plan year. We are currently working on employee communication, so we'll be sure to share that just as soon. It should be done today. We'll be sharing that with the auditor's office prior to open enrollment, and then we'll share it with your employees during open enrollment. The first change is as it relates to the doctor's office copay. So if you can see that on the page here on page 7, go to about 3/4 of the way down. It says physician office copay is $10. Beginning July 1st, if your employees receive care from a primary care physician is a general practitioner, a pediatrician, nurse practitioner, internal medicine, or OBGYN. One of those 5 doctors, if they engage with, they actually get a $5 discount on their copay. So if your employees engage with one of those 5 doctors, their copay will become $5 beginning July 1st. If they continue to doctor with specialty docs, there's no penalty. They'll still pay the same $10 that they've always paid. So there's no penalty to your employees, but there is some room for some incentive if they do choose to declare a medical home, meaning declare a primary care physician and then use that primary care physician. The other change is as it relates to your specialty copay. You currently have an $85 specialty copay on prescription drugs. These are the most expensive drugs on the market. If you turn your TV on, those are the ones you're going to see. Beginning July 1st, we have negotiated a relationship with a company called Prudent RX, and this is with Wellmark. Prudent RX now has a very large list of specialty drugs that beginning on July 1st will become available to your employees at no cost. So there'll be a $0 copay, where today those are $85 a pop. So big incentive for employees to use those prudent RX drugs. Why would Wellmark do that? Right, currently, there's a lot of drug manufacturer money that sits out there, and a lot of times employees are accessing that money through discount cards, etc. So Wellmark has found a way to get access to that money, so it'll happen at the plan level. So we're getting access to those manufacturer discounts and coupons, saving the plan money, and then we can then take that money and save the employees money. So again, for those specialty drugs, not all specialty drugs, we're going to provide you a list. And if that drug is on that list, those drugs will be delivered at no cost to your employees.
Instead of tier 3.
Instead of specialty copay.
Okay.
Yep.
I know it's tier 3, the tier 3 drugs.
Yes. So tier 3 drugs will remain at $40. Tier 3 and 4 will be
That's great.
Yeah, I know. It really is. It really is. Other than that, there are no changes to your plan going forward. So both changes will positively impact your employees, and we'll make sure that's communicated as we go into open enrollment. I know you've already approved your renewal, but just to take a minute to go through it, on the top section, the yellow there, you'll see the current premium components. The one to really focus on here is the Wellmark premium. If in the gold section up top, right above that highlight, you'll see Wellmark premium at $743.97 on a single contract and $1859.92 on a family contract. That's the number that's increasing. We received a 4% renewal for IGHCP this year, so those are the numbers increasing by 4%. If you drop down then to the gray section, the same line item, Wellmark premium now is $773 and $1934. That's increasing those top numbers by 4%. Leaving all other premium components the same has a net impact to Jefferson County of 3.91%. That's allocating $1.2 million into your, I'm sorry, that's your annual cost. That is keeping your partial self-fund. I know that we don't account for your partial self-fund in your costs, but we do communicate with the auditor's office and have a couple of times this year to make sure we're on track for the appropriate amount of partial self-funding. And you'll see that on the very next page. So this is how we calculate your partial self-fund utilization. We start by looking at the Wellmark out-of-pocket maximum by plan. And from that, we subtract what the employees have to pay in their out-of-pocket maximum, leaving county risk. So that gray highlight is what the county is exposed to per plan. So if we really look at plan 1, your $250 deductible, that's that most populated plan. The most the county is going to pay for any single claim on plan 1 is $6,700 on a single contract and $13,400 on a family contract. So even if we had a city this year that had a $3 million claim, even if you have a $3 million claim, the most you're going to pay is $6,700. Okay, so while you are taking some risk through partial self-funding, it's mitigated, and then we're calculating those risk costs back into your plan cost. So your total exposure for all 3 plans is $751,550. And then again, through conversations with the auditor's office, we like to see that funded somewhere around 20%. You guys have a nice reserve and your claims are running well, so going below that 20% makes perfect sense. That's going to lead us to your dental benefit renewal. No change in benefits and no change in cost. So your dental received a 0% across all 3 plans. One thing that we could start talking about, doesn't have to be this year, certainly, but your benefit period maximums are kind of low. They're on the lower side, being at $1,000. So maybe next year we can talk about increasing that to $2,000, if it makes sense from a premium point. So that way, so another way of saying that, right now, your employees get about $1,000 of insurance per year just on their dental insurance. With dental costs increasing, especially in the area of orthodontia, braces are now around $6,000. Increasing that dental benefit might be a nice option for your employees. Your vision benefits and renewal, we also quoted your dental benefits, by the way. We did not find a better option than what you have, do a like by like comparison. We also quoted your vision benefits. We were able to provide savings on the vision. So I did bring that in as an alternate. You are receiving a 0% renewal on your current Avisis plan. So entirely up to you which direction you go. But we were able to reduce your cost by 52% if you went with the alternate. The carrier would be Delta, so it would line up with your dental carrier. Delta is our probably our most used vision provider in IGHCP now. You can see the benefits are comparable, a little bit better on the Delta side. So for standard progressive lenses, it's a $75 copay, where currently you get coverage up to $50. And then same with your specialty lenses, you get up to $50, where there's copays depending on which specialty lens you get. Frames are every 24 months. The plan pays up to $150. So does the alternate plan, but you get another 20% off of that after the $150. Contacts, you get a little bit more money from the alternate plan. And then LASIK surgery is a little bit better as well. Your rates would go from $11.63 on a single contract down to $5.40. Cut your family premium in half, roughly. Each of the in half. With that said, I did do an analysis of your vision providers, and Delta doesn't currently have Washington Eye. I think it was called Washington Eye Care. But I have not found any of your employees using them yet. So we're scrubbing your claims as we speak to see if we can find anybody that went to them that would get a worse benefit by virtue of this change. So we should have an answer to you, I would say today or tomorrow on that. If it makes sense, you have a great option here. If it doesn't make sense, a 0% renewal for your vision, okay? Your life insurance is also renewing at 0%, so no change in benefits and no change in cost. Same with your short and long-term disability insurance, no change in benefits, no change in costs. And then that's going to take us to benchmarking. So there's several pages of this because I benchmarked all of your plans. So I'm just going to go through your first plan. And then if you guys have questions, I'm happy to stay longer, but I don't want to tidy up. So our page 15, this is going to be for your $250 deductible plan. We're first going to look at deductibles, showing what the IGHCP average is versus Jefferson County, and then the national average for city and county government is the yellow line. So you're under both the IGHCP average and the national average as it relates to deductibles and out-of-pocket maximums.
So if I look at this right,
Yep.
it's a $250 deductible, and the average is
$1,000.
$1,000 in IGHCP.
Correct.
So if we made a change like that, I know you don't have it off the top
Sure.
of your head, but how would it affect our premiums?
Yeah, it's going to affect, if you just change the deductible and the out-of-pocket maximum at the employee level and not at the Wellmark level, all that will change is the amount of partial self-funding you spend. Because we're not going to change that Wellmark premium. Wellmark premium is the biggest number in what you pay. So to really obtain some savings at the Wellmark level, we would want to look at changing the Wellmark plan. So that's changing a doctor's office copay, maybe going from $20 or $10 to $15 or $10 to $20. That's where you're gonna really see some savings.
And I know we're not gonna do that now.
Sure,
I'm just
sure.
asking.
Yep.
Okay, so.
And Dee, we can do that anytime. So when
Yeah,
you
I
guys
know.
don't have the pressure of the renewal, if you wanted to do that like in the middle of the summer or sometime this
Yeah.
fall, when you don't have the renewal breathing down your neck, that's a good time for those exercises. And I'd be happy to come down and do a work
Purely what it
session.
would be, it'd be like a what if.
Yeah, it would just be a work session and just looking at those alternates when you don't have the pressure of getting your plan renewed and you're in the middle of budget season and all of that stuff. Co-insurance and co-pays, you guys on page 16, you have an 80-20 plan. IGHCP has a number of groups at 90-10. So it's coming in, the average is coming in a little over 15% co-insurance because of those varying levels that we have. 80-20 is definitely the most common outside of IGHCP. Office visit copays, you guys are at $10. The IGHCP average is again right above 15. We have $10 copays, $15 copays, and $20 copays. We just added a $30 copay. So with you guys being at 10, you're on the lower end. Pharmacy copays, your tier 1, well, you're at 10, 20, 40. We have a 0, 15, 30 option. We have other options within IGHCP. So you're coming in on tier 1, even with the national average, a little higher than IGHCP. And then you can see on tiers 2 and 3 as that follows it. In total premiums, your guys' premiums average about right in the middle of where everybody else is. You're a little higher than the industry standard, but with richer benefits, that makes sense. IGHCP does have richer benefits than what we see nationally. Relative to employee contributions, this looks really skewed. I mean, it looks like you guys, your employees are paying a lot more than they are. Part of that is because many IGHCP groups don't pay anything. They don't contribute at all on a single contract. So because your employees contribute something, that's skewing that. The next several pages, so I benchmarked plans 2 and plans 3. So you can kind of go through that. You're going to see very similar results. And then that'll take us to page 32. Which is our current membership. So this is the other cities, counties participating in IGHCP. We talked a little about what groups we believe are coming in July 1st. We do still have some schools that participate with us, but again, those are exceptions and will not be, additional schools will not be considered. We are able to take on groups like Waterworks and some councils of governments. IGHCP implemented an array of wellness plans this year. We took kind of a unique approach to wellness in that many IGHCP groups are already doing wellness. They have very successful wellness platforms. So we didn't want to come in and charge them for something that they won't use because they're already using an outside vendor, local hospital, etc. So we have 3 options, bronze, silver, and gold. The bronze plan is available at no cost. We have a population health manager that now works for us. She came from Delta Airlines, has a lot of experience doing population health management. So her resources are available to Jefferson County at no cost. If you want help putting together some sort of platform, we're here to partner with you on that with the bronze. Having no cost. We're just taking the resources within your plan within our company to do so.
So for example, if we decided if voluntarily, if people wanted to get an annual physical,
Yes.
so I know in my past work life, I worked for places that did that. That's at no cost to the employee.
That's correct.
And that's no copay?
That's correct.
Okay. Because the thought is, and it does pan out, if you catch things early, it
Absolutely
costs
pans
less
absolutely pans out.
So I'd be interested when we do this work session on learning about logistics of how places do that, because I
Yeah.
realize, I know I've worked places where the employer gave us incentives to
Yes.
do that.
Yes, we have groups that do that as well. Yeah, so we, our primary partner as it relates to local partnerships, obviously, we try to work with public health where we can. We also work very closely with Hy-Vee in almost every county in the state of Iowa. Hy-Vee has been an absolute incredible partner. They do all of our biometrics screenings. And then they house all of that information. So they'll come in with their, I know you probably know
I've
exactly
done
what I'm
this
talking about.
My
Yeah.
previous job.
Yeah, so they'll bring in their buses. We've run 2 successful biometrics for the city of Council Bluffs. They have over 500 employees. This year, they added all of their spouses in, so we saw a significant amount of people in a short period of time in partnership with Hy-Vee. We coordinated it with a health fair, so we brought in all of the local vendors, from gyms to public health, to people that work for Park and Rec to help show everybody where the trails are and things like that. So again, these are things that we'll work in partnership with you on, at no cost. The silver plan builds off of the bronze plan, so it has everything in the bronze plan, and then it adds in some additional portals, and it brings in WellWorks. If you use this plan, it's not very well identified, but there is a cost at the bottom of the page. You can see that at $75 per employee, $75 cents per employee. It's very expensive. 75 cents per employee per month to participate in the silver plan.
As well works that online assessment that's like really long and
Yes,
confusing.
it's not very confusing, but it is.
Oh, it is for
Okay.
employees.
Okay.
All right.
We can show you a demo of it. It's been pretty well received, so it might have gone through a few upgrades since you've seen it.
Oh, I'm sure it has.
Okay. And then on page 35 is the gold plan. Again, not very identifiable, but on the right-hand side, up at the top, you'll see this plan is $265 per employee per month. That's going to lead us to Rocket Lawyer. Rocket Lawyer, we rolled out this last December. I do know that you guys had participation in the rollout. We did a lot of employee calls where they could jump on a webinar to understand how the program works. This is a trial run for IGHCP. We're doing it for a year to see how it goes. If it was well received and utilized, we'll let the board consider, the IGHCP board consider if it's something they want to move forward with. Our first year is at no cost, so your employees do have access to this through the end of the year at no cost. They can get all of the documents they need. All of the attorneys are certified, board certified in, it's kind of like doctors on demand, but with attorneys. So you're not going to use it for the big stuff. Yeah. To get the free trial, it's important that you use the /IGHCP link that is listed on this page. Otherwise, they'll be charged. They'll ask for a credit and so forth. Employee Navigator is a new benefit admin system. So this will incorporate online enrollment. If this is something that, I don't know if have you done any demos on this, Darcy? Okay.
Is this something you want to do?
Good. I would recommend sitting through a demo. You don't have to do it, obviously, but there are some really nice reporting that I think you would like. You know how you guys like to show this is your current benefits, this is your new benefits, this is the premium. It does all of that really fast.
Yeah, that would be really good.
And it also really will pull in the cost. This is what it costs to employ you.
Yes, I think that's important.
Yeah.
When people understand that.
Yeah. So
Because I was kind of doing the numbers as you were talking through it.
yeah,
Significant.
this will do that all for you.
Okay.
And again, there's no cost for this. We partnered with Employee Navigator, and the insurance carriers are paying for the cost of it because it makes their lives administratively better. That leads us to page 36, which is your IGHCP team. Reagan Jones is your primary contact for your claims advocate. So she works, is the one that would work closely with your employees to help you understand claims problems, claims concerns, issues. We also have Danny Berdar, Marla Jones, Jennifer McMillan replaced Cindy Allen, who retired. Yeah, and then myself.
Right? Thanks, Denise.
Yeah, you bet. Any questions? If you want to kind of coordinate maybe through Darcy to come back late summer, early fall, we can take a look at some options when it's less hectic for you for next year.
Sounds good.
Because you guys talked, can I say something? You guys talked about like an HSA, and I don't know that went anywhere. I mean, you talked about
We
that
haven't
several
done
months
anything on
ago.
it.
And I'm gonna advocate yet again for our flex year to be reflective of our calendar year, as is our deductibles, because that is so confusing.
Okay.
And I've asked for that several times. I know it's not your issue, it's an internal issue within the auditor, because they say it's a budget issue. But flex is our money as employees. So I don't understand why that's such a cumbersome process.
Maybe with all the new
Yeah.
systems, we can look
It
at
would
that
really be
again.
nice, because you're already, you're looking at your out of pocket, your insurance, everything's a calendar year except our flex.
Yeah, that is an internal decision. We have groups that do it July, we have groups that do it in January, so we're happy to do
Yeah.
whichever way you instruct us.
Yeah, I just bring it up while we're all here.
Yep. The last thing I just gave you, that's your current benefit guide. That's for your current plan year. So we're in the process of updating that with your benefit decisions. Once we know what you're gonna do with vision, we'll get that fully updated, add all of the open enrollment language in there. We'll make sure you have electronic copies in case you wanna send those out, or you wanna hang them on an intranet. All of the mandated information is at the very back of that then, so you're covering all the employer mandates at the same time as your benefit elections.
This question's for you. I know I saw an email a while back that was somebody wanting a total amount that Jefferson County paid on healthcare.
Yep.
Have you calculated that yet?
Yep.
Can you send that to me? Does that include partial self-funding? Can you include that amount?
No, that was just what was counted out of employees payroll.
Okay, can you send that and then also send partial self-funding so we have the whole number? All right,
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I appreciate it.
thank you.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Yeah. Well,
Okay, you guys all had a nice Easter.
Yes. Okay, we're gonna move on to committee reports. I had DCAT, Grow Fairfield, Department Head meeting, and I had an opioid Zoom. It's a first one. I think they're gonna do it every 3 or 4 weeks. Through ISAC just started this. It was mostly county auditors and a couple supervisors, everybody has the same questions about this process. So it was really helpful, and I did take a couple minutes. I'll follow up with Elizabeth on. One of them was, just for example, the interest that we earn on the opioid money needs to be kept in an opioid interest account. Things like that,
Can't spend that on other stuff.
right? Right. Susie,
Nothing.
committees lead.
Had RPA, we are approved funding for 9 vehicles for 1015 Transit. And they're all minivans with the exception of one. And also on the agenda was Jefferson County's 110th resurfacing project. And so project will involve reclamation, service and subgrade, placing the 2-inch HMA base and a 1.75-inch HMA surface. Total project cost is $3,125,000, includes the $2.5 million in grant funding, and then we'll use $625,000 in farm market. Had transit, and pretty much straightforward. We're doing great on our, I guess it depends on your perspective, but I think we're doing great on our veterans transportation. Jefferson County to date this fiscal year have provided 72 rides for our veterans. Obviously, Wapello County is the big user, but I think I talked to you the last time, we're looking at a grant opportunity that's out there to help offset some of the costs, because we've spent 109,000 to date, you know, which we're not looking to stop doing it or any of that, but just wanted you to know. And then I had an Area 15 regional planning, and the big thing was the audit. If anybody's interested, they don't have anything better to do. There's the audit, I'll leave it out. There were no findings other than, as is the case with all small entities, the separation of duties, you know, which that basically
Nature of the.
was, yeah, basically was it. Looking real quick, I don't think I had anything else.
Okay.
Well, I did have ECI. We talked, no, I didn't. That was last week and the week before. So I think that's it.
All right. Okay, do we have a motion for claims?
Approved claims in the amount of $70,752.89.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All righty, motion to adjourn,
So move.
second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, bye, everybody.